This video is brought to you by True Tales of Buried Treasure, the largest collection of old treasure magazines in the West. On our website, you can search for individual treasure stories by region, or buy our original magazines themselves. To pay us a visit, please click on the link in the description. Enjoy. The stagecoach rattled along the rough trail from the Eagle Springs stage station toward Quitman Canyon, carrying a valuable shipment of gold coins bound for the banks in El Paso, Texas. Inside, the driver, Morgan, and his lone passenger, a gambler named Crenshaw, better known as Gambler Red, spoke in hushed tones, finalizing their plan. The two men, old friends, had devised a scheme to steal the gold. Their plan was simple yet ruthless. They would kill the mules, ransack the stagecoach, and vanish with the loot. To cover their tracks, they intended to make it look like an Apache ambush. Though only a few Apaches remained in the area, their attacks were still feared. A grisly scene, dead mules still harnessed, bloodied earth, shredded canvas curtains, scattered mail, and a ripped open leather boot with the gold missing, would leave little doubt that the notorious warriors had struck again. As for Morgan and Gambler Red, they would simply disappear. It would be assumed the Apaches had either taken them captive or killed them and hidden their bodies. A sheriff's posse would search for a while before eventually giving up. That part was easy. The real challenge was escaping with the gold. Morgan and Gambler Red had planned that too. Two strong horses trailing the stage at a distance would carry the stolen coins to an abandoned Butterfield Overland stage station, known as the First Camp on the Rio Grande. There, they would bury the treasure and wait for the search efforts to die down. Once the chaos had settled, they would return under the guise of collecting personal belongings. Later, when it was safe, they would retrieve the gold, secure pack mules, and slip out of the territory. With their stolen fortune, they planned to start anew in an eastern state where no one knew them, living in luxury far from suspicion. As the stage neared Quitman Mountain Pass, known as the Apache Post Office, due to the ancient petroglyphs etched into the overhanging rocks, the time had come to set their plan in motion. When the stage failed to arrive at Fort Quitman, a search party led by Rip John Ford was dispatched. Upon reaching Quitman Pass, they stumbled upon the staged ambush. Every detail pointed to an Apache attack. The dead animals, the torn-up mail, the looted stage. It seemed clear. Whoever had been inside the coach had likely been taken captive. The location only reinforced their assumption. The pass was known for its Apache presence, and their savagery was well documented. Not long before, Apaches had ambushed a cavalry camp at Ojo Caliente, gruesomely pinning the soldiers' corpses to the ground with iron stakes. The scene before them at Quitman Canyon appeared to be yet another act of Apache brutality. Determined to track down the supposed captives, Rip Ford and his men followed what they believed to be the last remnants of an Apache trail, hoping to find the missing stage occupants. When their search yielded nothing, Ford returned to Fort Quitman and wrote to his old friend, Texas Ranger Captain George W. Baylor, stationed at Isleta. Captain Baylor, who relished the challenge of hunting Apaches in their own territory, seized the opportunity. On the morning of January 19, 1881, he arrived at Fort Quitman. Rip Ford advised that rather than backtracking to the ambush site, it would be more efficient to pick up the Apaches' trail along the Rio Grande. Following this suggestion, Captain Baylor and his company of Texas Rangers set out downriver. Before long, they discovered an Indian trail, and with it, a fur-tipped glove. It was a small clue, but it rekindled their hope. Perhaps against all odds, they would find the captives alive. Captain Baylor and his Texas Rangers pursued the Indian trail deep into the rugged Sierra Diablo Mountains. At dawn on January 29, 1881, they launched a surprise raid on an Apache encampment near a waterhole. The attack was devastating. Every warrior was killed except for one, who managed to escape to the Fort Stanton Indian Reservation in New Mexico. A woman and two children were taken captive and later transferred to Fort Davis. After the battle, Captain Baylor made a chilling report. In their flight, the Apaches passed through the clear water lying on the rock bottom, and though a savage animal, none of us cared to drink the blood of our enemies. Meanwhile, Morgan and Gambler Red's deception at the ambush site had worked flawlessly. Captain Baylor and his men assumed that the stagecoach occupants had been murdered and their bodies hidden by the Apaches somewhere along the trail. No effort was made to locate them. Several expeditions searched the Quitman Mountains and the Sierra Diablos for the missing gold, but every attempt ended in failure. It wasn't until months later that the truth began to surface. The bodies of Morgan and Crenshaw were finally discovered, not far from Quitman Canyon. The evidence suggested that they had been killed after hiding the gold, likely while attempting to return to the stagecoach for their personal belongings, just as they had planned. Their fate was grim, but in an ironic twist, their own plot had set in motion the near destruction of an entire Apache band. Did the Apaches murder Morgan and Crenshaw and then unearth their hidden treasure? Some historians believe otherwise. Experts on the subject argue that the stolen fortune, valued at a minimum of $100,000, remains buried near the abandoned first camp on the Rio Grande. The exact amount of gold originally intended for the El Paso banks was never disclosed, but it was not unusual for stagecoaches of that era to transport such sums, making the treasure's potential modern value staggering. For those interested in uncovering more details about this lost fortune, several historical sources provide valuable insights. Old documents, memoirs, and newspaper reports from the time recount the massacre and the treasure's disappearance. Notable references include 6 Years with the Texas Rangers by James B. Gillett, the El Paso Daily Times, Winter 1896, Ripford's Texas, various reports and telegrams exchanged between Captain Baylor and the Adjutant General's office in early and mid-1881, the El Paso Daily Herald, August 11th and 13th, 1900, the Galveston Daily News, November 29th, 1905. Treasure hunters have long speculated about the whereabouts of the missing gold. In 1969, a cache of silver coins, predating Morgan's stage robbery, was unearthed near the ruins of the Butterfield stage station. That same year, a small hoard of gold bars was discovered near Old Fort Quitman, but Morgan's stage records made no mention of transporting gold bars. The mystery remains. Somewhere in the remote Texas wilderness, a fortune in gold may still be waiting to be found. The gold bars and silver coins discovered in 1969 were likely from another robbery or an unrecovered stash, unrelated to Morgan and Gambler Red's heist. The most logical place to search for the missing Apache Post Office treasure is near the old first camp on the Rio Grande. This historic site can be located by exiting Interstate 10 at Tommystown, approximately 16 miles west of Sierra Blanca, Texas. From there, follow the paved ranch road southeast. Along the route, you will cross several cattle guards. The remains of the first camp on the Rio Grande lie about 200 yards northeast of the last cattle guard, situated on an elevated plateau. The site bears the marks of past treasure hunters. The ground is pockmarked with old dig sites, some several feet deep, others shallower. Despite years of searches, the area still contains artifacts that could aid in the quest for the lost gold. Fragments of purple glass, hand-forged nails, horseshoes, and other metal relics can be found among the decayed wooden ruins of what was once a Butterfield overland stage stop. While the site sits on state land, it has not been officially designated as a historic site, meaning there should be no significant restrictions on exploration. For those determined to uncover the Apache Post Office treasure, the search begins here. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to read the original article or purchase the magazine from which it was taken, please check out our website, truetalesofburiedtreasure.com.